Welcome to Life Picks Relationships, helping you understand and enliven your marriage through the various perspectives and experiences of others who found a way to prioritize what's really important in life. From new love to those that have weathered the storms, let's get ready to take your relationships to the next level with your host, ST.
Hey, Life Fixers, hope you're having an awesome day. Are you ready to better understand yourself, your partner, and your marriage? Oh yeah, you will on today's episode. If you haven't yet followed or subscribed, depending on which app you're listening, you'll want to do that right now so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. Now for today's episode, I'm super excited to introduce to you a couple that's been married for 36 years that had lots of adventures, lots of experiences, and a lot of life challenges. But today, they're best friends and just loving each other more and more each day. Thank you so much, Annette and Mark, for being here. I am excited to be speaking with you. You want to start by telling us how you guys met?
Wow, how we met. We're going back a few years. You know, we met
38 years ago.
38 years ago. That's probably older than you.
Way older than me, yeah.
Anyway, it was summer. And I was working at a department store and some friends, it was a Friday, we were at work and they said, "Hey, do you have plans tomorrow?" And I said, "No." And they invited me to go with them. We live in Utah with beautiful mountains. And there was a campground up the mountains. And they said, "Hey, there's this big barbecue. And do you want to come with us?" And I said, "Sure." I really didn't have any plans. And so I went with my friends and we're up there and playing volleyball, waiting, to actually start, the meal and things. And next thing I know, this good looking guy shows up across the net from me. And
I have to take it from here because I had also been invited up by some friends as well. We've been fishing up in the mountains, and we came down to this barbecue. Who doesn't want a hamburger, right? So we're up there, and I'm standing across the volleyball net from Annette, and I'm thinking I've got to be really careful here that if the ball comes to me, that I don't hit this poor defenseless girl here. And you know what happened? She spiked the ball on me. And I thought, wow, this is my kind of person. I like this girl already.
And here we are, 38 years later. So I may have spiked the ball on him.
Many times since.
Probably so, but we're not going to go there.
No, totally not. I'm sure your relationship has changed in many, many ways over those past 38 years. What would you say is the greatest thing that came out from now, like from where you are today to from where you were 38 years ago?
Can I start with that one?
You sure can.
There have been different chapters in our married life that have given us pause for reflection, have given us a chance to look back and say, wow, that was a real game changer in our relationship. There are many. One of the many that happened with us is that 10 years ago, we lost our 21-year-old son to the effects of brain tumor. And at the time, we didn't realize it, but that we recognized now, 10 years later, that we grieved so differently. And the way that Annette grieved and the way that I grieved was so different. But at the same time, it brought us together. And there are statistics that show when you have issues in your life, they're very difficult, as you probably well know, there's a good chance that marriage might not work. For us, we decided early on that that was something that was going to work for us. And as a product of that, we are stronger together today.
Wow.
It's been a lifetime really of learning to communicate. And like Mark said, grieving, we did it so differently. And in so many things, we did things differently. And that didn't make his way right or wrong or my way right or wrong. It's just that's how we are as individuals. And I think as a married couple, you bring this diverse dynamics into this marriage. And that's what makes it beautiful. is it's not sterile. You're always learning and growing. And we have 4 children. And our son that passed away was, number 3 of 4. And he was diagnosed with this brain tumor at age 8. So we had many years of learning to travel, this journey, which was so difficult because you never knew what was going to come up. And things could be great in the morning, and a half hour later, you could be in the middle of a crisis with this son of ours. And how do we care for all of our children? How do we care for our relationship and still nurture it? Because it took effort, intentional effort. But like Mark said, when we were married,
we're still married.
Yes, we are still married. But we went into this marriage thinking, this is forever. There is not an out. And we work through things, and we're committed to one another and to our family and to our goals. And they're different, but we learn to blend those dreams and those ideas, and what was his becomes ours, and what was, a dream of mine becomes ours. And it's been so fun and so rewarding as we've learned to blend the diversity of each of us.
Can I just add one more thing to that as well? And that is that we've learned that there's big rocks and there's little rocks. The big rocks are important. Mm-hmm. Those are the ideas that we have that we want to achieve. The little rocks are more of how are we going to achieve it? Now, if we're working individually to achieve that big rock, sometimes those little rocks, Annette does things a little bit different than I do sometimes, but we all are working towards a common goal. And I think that that's one of the things that is very often missing in relationships, is that my goals and your goals might not be the same. Well, early on, as Annette mentioned, we made those decisions that those big rocks were very important. And how we get to those big rocks isn't as important as the fact that we do get to those achievements.
Wow. What you guys just said is like so much there to unpack, so much to go through. Let's see what we could actually go and really pull out of you and go in deep. Like, I want to go deep in everything. Let's see what we'll get to. So first thing, I absolutely love what you said about the fact that you went in there knowing this was forever. I think people who don't have divorce in their lingo, it's like not an option, it's not a thing, not something that even ever enters their mind, are the ones that are going to go and make it work, because you just have to.
Right.
We have a throwaway culture. And very often in our throwaway culture, if something doesn't go right, we try to throw it away and go to the store and buy a new one. And that happens too often in marriage situations as well. And in fact, I believe that those situations that have been difficult in our lives have done nothing but strengthened us as time goes on. Sometimes you have to sit back and really reflect on what am I learning, or what does God want me to learn from this experience.
You know what? I forgot to close the window. Are you hearing that? Because we're going to edit this.
Edit it. Yeah.
We just had a cement truck go by.
We have some neighbors doing some construction. So I thought, what is that? Oh no.
Yeah, I have an auto body shop right near my house. The guy that decided to build them right in a residential area, and sometimes they'll like be blasting things. I'm like, I just need you to be quiet.
Okay. I will figure out where you just ended there, and I'll start back.
Just talking about the throwaway culture.
Yeah, the throwaway culture it's frightening, actually, to me, that we can just, dispose of whatever. Now, we're not saying you don't look at the messy stuff, and there are messy things in life, right? But can we repair it? Can we make it stronger? Can we do those things to make it more beautiful because of the messies? About a year and a half ago, I was preparing to teach a group of women, and we were talking about hard things, about feeling broken, feeling less than, right? And as I was preparing, I came across, it's an old Japanese art, and it's called consubi. And you probably can't see this, but
whoever's watching on YouTube will be able to see it. Yeah.
It is where they take these broken pieces of pottery, these beautiful pieces of pottery, and instead of just sweeping up the pieces, because we all break a bowl or a vase or something that we love, and we sweep them up and throw them away, right? Instead, they carefully pull these pieces back together. They clean them off, and then they mend them with precious gold. And so it becomes more beautiful.
And stronger than it was before.
And stronger than ever before. And it's not a quick fix. We want quick fixes in life too. Life isn't meant to just quickly go through. And really the challenging things, the things that have taken time, even years to mend, are what make us even more precious, more beautiful. And healing really took place in my life personally when I understood this concept. And as I was teaching these women and sharing this with them, you could just see it in their eyes that all of a sudden they understood. They understood that, those heartaches, those things that made them feel less than, feel broken, they were thinking wrong, incorrectly. It's actually what makes us who we are and stronger and more beautiful. So in our marriage, when we look at it in this way, it's, those hard times, it's the struggles, it's the rumbles, as Brene Brown likes to talk about. Those are the things that bring beauty. They help us to become stronger, to become more precious as a couple.
Can I just say really quickly, when we started doing this originally, we've done a number of these broken vessels here. But when we did this originally...
I love this side. See, some have to fill in a little more. Okay, sorry.
There you go. No. When we did this originally, our objective was to get it done as quickly as we possibly could. And as we did that, we found that the end result wasn't nearly as beautiful as it probably could have been if we would have just taken our time. And I think that's a message. It's a universal message that we need to share, is that if you're looking for a quick fix, you're going to be sorely upset that it doesn't happen as quickly as you would hope that it does. But in reality, when it comes right down to it, if you can sit down and you can actually mend this together, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a pot or whatever it might be, if you can do it together, you can do it methodically, and you can talk about it and be genuine and real about it. That makes all the difference.
Totally. Yeah, and I had 2 questions for you. First of all, could you share with us a specific thing that you see in your marriage from a challenge, like that became better because of a challenge? And then how were you actually able to do it?
Well, just let me say this. We love to laugh. Laughter is what gets us through a lot of the faux pas in life. So a specific example for me, we're diving deep here. I was abused and younger, and there was a lot of things that I needed to work through. It wasn't something that I really I'd shoved it aside. And so I wasn't hiding something from Mark when we got married. I just didn't remember, right? But there comes a time in life that you have to address things. And the healing needed to take place. And I physically was struggling because of, when you shove everything down in, it comes out in a different way. And as I started to have the courage to look, to see, and to heal, it was really difficult for Mark. And it was difficult in our understanding, because first, it was trying to explain, I wasn't hiding this, and that, but then he couldn't fix it. And as a man, and especially as my husband, who loves me and has done everything in his power to protect and provide for our family, he couldn't fix me. And he had to sit by as he saw the pain, as he saw the process of healing. And he had to learn how to support in a different way. And honestly, that has been one of the greatest blessings, though. And that's why we can communicate the way we can now, because he had to learn to be vulnerable too in a different way and to share his feelings. Because at first I thought he was angry at me. And he thought it was like, why do we have to still be processing? Why do we have to, what's the timetable? Well, there's no timetable. But when he understood that, because he just wanted me to be happy, right? And when he understood at a different level, then all of a sudden he starts opening up. And I realized what I'm perceiving is he's not happy with, how I'm processing things. It was really just this depth of sorrow and concern because he couldn't fix it. But when he opened up and became real and vulnerable about how he was feeling, I believe our marriage just got even stronger and more beautiful.
Okay, so I'm going to add on to that. I'm going to share something with your audience that they don't know, and that is that men and women are different. I'm sure that that's a new concept for many of your listeners there, but it's so true. And as a provider, I wanted, as Annette said, to fix everything. The same thing happened when our son was sick. I wanted to fix everything, and I was a wreck. And it was a wreck too, because we both wanted to fix things. And after a while, it became obvious that we weren't going to be able to fix it. And so because of that, we were able to find ways to cope, and not just cope, but to continue to live. I think that that's a big key right there, is that when a couple is faced with a difficult situation in their life, they have to do more than just cope. They have to continue to live. One of Annette's mechanisms is to laugh. One of my mechanisms is to work around the house. Annette always knows when I'm upset about something because
stressed out.
Because I'll work around the house. I'll vacuum. I'll dust. I'll do things that maybe sometimes I don't do. But that's just my mechanism. And I think we all have different kinds of mechanisms. But when I say that, one of the big epiphanies that we had happened probably about a year ago as we were studying different styles. Everybody has different styles. And there's an organization called the Enneagram Group. And you may be familiar with Enneagrams. And
we did an episode on that. Episode 65, guys, if you didn't listen to it yet.
Awesome. We haven't heard 65 yet, but we totally are into the idea behind Enneagrams. And as it turns out, Annette is a helper, and I'm an achiever. Now, one of the things that happens between helpers and achievers is there can sometimes be a deep divide. And as we have learned about each other's style, and as we've read about each other's style, I believe that we've been able to put our relationship to an even greater level, because I know how to deal with some of the stresses that Annette deals with, and she knows how to deal with some of mine.
It really it opened up an understanding that previously 36 years of a relationship, of a marriage, that I thought, why do you think that way on some things? And a lot of women are out there thinking, man, he vacuums, he does. And thinking, they're shouting for joy. And I'm in my house thinking, he doesn't think I clean well enough. He doesn't think it's, I do this as good as, and so I'm thinking, I'm feeling like, oh no, I'm not doing it right. But in reality, that's his way to deal with things. How nice it is now and freeing that I finally understand why he does that. Instead of feeling guilty because he's cleaning, I'm just woohoo, little stressed, go clean.
Yeah. The best stress reliever. Like, not only does it do no harm to anyone, it actually helps.
Exactly. But it's interesting what our mind does. And like I said, it took me all these years to figure that out. And I would have enjoyed things a lot more, all those years as opposed to feeling a little bit guilty because maybe, I needed that line in the rug, in the carpet wasn't exactly straight or something. But Mark is exactly right when he talks about these tools. And, go back, listeners, and listen to episode 65. But we've actually included it in our course and as part of our course, because we found that it's so valuable in understanding yourself, in understanding your spouse, and just how to move forward and to be successful and to live life.
Yeah.
Too often we live in the status quo as in a relationship, and the status quo doesn't really allow you to learn, to grow, and to progress along. And it's when you become more mindful of the opportunities and the tools that are around you. Sometimes we have stigmas. Maybe the stigma of going to seek counseling might be such that I'm never going to do that. That's for sick people. That's for people that don't know how to cope with life. Well, what we've learned during the last 15 months is that all of us have an emotional resilience button that has been pushed. And we have all been put in a spot, in a position where it's really been tested. And sometimes nothing more than just talking about it can make all the difference in the world. But we tend not to do that because we don't want to be perceived as weak. We don't want to be perceived as having problems or issues. But once you try to learn to grow and to progress in a relationship with the different and various tools that are there available, that's when you begin to realize that, maybe things aren't quite as I perceived them before.
Yeah, totally. And I think that when you realize that there's a reason for everything, he's thinking differently. There's a reason why. You might not know the reason, but it could be because the way his brain is wired, his personality, things from the past, trauma, anything. And it makes it a little bit easier to deal with. And you don't take things so personally because usually it's not. Yeah. Now, how has the grieving and the changing of your relationship, but especially the fact of losing your son, affected your children growing up, having a sick brother and constantly not knowing what was happening?
One of the blessings of them growing up with a brother that was sick, that needed some extra attention, was that they were able to really see the one that needed help in their life. Instead of walking down the hallway at school or sitting in the classroom at school and just having those blinders on and wanting to be with the popular group or, whatever, they actually saw the one who needed a friend.
Yeah.
And they are empathetic adults now. They are loving adults who have the ability to connect with individuals very diverse and just happy individuals. And they wouldn't be that way, I don't think, had they not had a brother who needed so much. Now, with that, saying that, we also were very concerned that we couldn't lose our other three children because we were so focused on the one. And so it was a little bit of a juggling act to do this together. And we found things to do together as a family. So if we had, we didn't do a lot of traveling outside areas where there wasn't a hospital close by. Or just things that we had to adjust because we knew we needed to have resources, right? We live close to our extended family, and Sundays is a family day. And often we would go to Mark's parents on a Sunday evening. And we would just gather there, and his siblings and, the cousins, and everyone loved to just be together. And it was fun to have the cousins all together and just laughing and talking. And there were many Sundays that our son, he had debilitating migraines that came with this tumor. And you knew he couldn't go because he would do anything to be there. So, because he loved his cousins. So when he was bad, you knew he was bad if he couldn't do it. But often it was the siblings. It was either his younger brother that would say, I'll stay home with him. Or, it was just sweet. And so we still did things, but everybody took a turn. They kind of, they learned how to watch out for one another and to be there for one another.
Yeah, and I would just say that in this whole process with losing our son, there were so many different learning times that we found that as time went on, our children became more resilient. They became not only resilient, but they became more compassionate. As Annette said, in talking to kids at school that maybe got bullied or such, and even to this day, all of our children are into their 30s. They're their best friends, and sometimes what happens is that an event like that can either bring you closer together or it can tear you further apart. And we looked at it as not a setback, but a setup. And as our children became more and more resilient, they'll tell you to this day that the best growth in their life probably came during those most stressful years.
I mean, it was hard. It was not an easy childhood for them. But I look at how they are now in their resiliency. There wasn't a lot of extra money because our extra money went to, treatments and trying different things that often were considered experimental. It hadn't been approved, by the FDA or whatever. And we were doing homeopathic things and different treatments that insurance doesn't pay for, right?
Right.
Trying to bring every resource into this. And so we didn't splurge on all these extra things to, all the time. We had a wonderful, comfortable life, but mom and dad weren't always buying them things and toys and new clothes and new shoes or whatever the case may be. So they learned to cherish what they have and to take care of what they have too. And at the time,
I may have that throw out mentality so much.
They don't have that throw out mentality. And our youngest son and his wife, I just am in awe. And I thought, where did they learn this? Because they are
mature beyond their years.
In their thought process and what they're doing. And I thought, I've been able to go back and say, well, that's why. This is why. And it's been beautiful. Another thing that we did as a family and with our children is we were a team. We were in this all together. And mom could not always be there to take care of fixing dinner.
Yeah.
Because I was, running from here and there and appointments and different things. Well, we created a schedule where each of the children also learned how to cook and to fix meals. And so when we would plan out, our menus, they knew which night was theirs. They helped create the menu. I made sure we had everything. I worked with them in the beginning to teach them how. But again, now they're all excellent cooks and it's been wonderful, but it's doing those little things along the way.
Yeah, totally. You're still living. You're not just coping
Yes.
while it, and not in any which way to take away from what you just said, but listeners who hopefully don't have a sick child can still learn from this, especially the part of giving, teaching your kids to cherish what they have, to look out for those other people's, even the dinner, have your kids help you make those dinners and don't just dump them in the kitchen and expect everything to just happen. Like you said, you're going to help them. You're going to teach them. You're going to have all those supplies for them, but let them get the skills that they need really to go and live their best lives.
There's a lot of things we can teach our children along the way. And some of the things that we taught totally unconsciously. Mm-hmm. And years later, we look back now and they'll talk about some of those circumstances in life that might have been difficult. I remember when our children were growing up, there was a real dark cloud one day at our home. I think it had to do with our son's illness, and he wasn't feeling well, and that kind of cast a little bit of darkness. And one of our small children at the time said, what'll make us feel better? And we said, what? And she said, what if we went over to Mrs. Turner's house and cleaned her windows? And that was the children teaching the adults, the parents here. And years later, we look at that experience as not only something that got our whole family out of the doldrums that they were in at the time, but something that our children and hopefully us as well continue to do, is to look out for others that might need help. Because, when it comes right down to it, sometimes hope is the greatest gift we can give. And when someone is struggling, in whatever way they might be struggling, all they need is a little bit of hope and a little bit of knowledge that someone else cares.
Totally. Especially when you're in a relationship also, not always, like you said, like you couldn't go and change Annette's problems of things that she had to go and work through, but by giving hope, being there for that person, having their backs and then knowing that they could go and get through it is what will help them actually be able to go and get through it.
Gandhi once said that the best thing that we can do in life is to change the world in a gentle way. And we need to find more of those gentle ways to change the world. And changing the world occurs within the walls of your own home.
I love that.
It has to start within the walls of your own home. And that's when it's genuine and it grows exponentially. And it's a beautiful thing. And really, this is something a year ago, I would never in my life dream that we would ever be on a podcast. That we would have a podcast. It was not on the bucket list, but we felt this desire to offer hope. We felt this desire that, there are things that we have learned in life that we would just hate the thought of someone going through life of feeling alone. And so we just thought, well, how can we make a difference? The world that we've lived in the last few years has kind of been a negative place, a negative Nelly. And we wanted to show that there are other ways. There's other ways to live and to be kind and things that we can do, even though we couldn't, we go outside and do things that we typically, did because of the pandemic and just different cautions that we were taking so that we could all be healthy. But we found a way to do something differently. We found a way to spread that joy, that hope, and to hopefully put a smile on someone's face. And the interesting thing is, it's brought so much joy to us.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, Covey wrote a book years and years ago called the 7 Skills of Highly Effective People.
My dad's favorite book.
Everybody recognizes that book. And, there are a number of important characteristics that we can incorporate into our lives, putting first things first, for example. But for us, we believe that trying to understand others before being understood is a critical, important part of our relationship. And as we And I'm don't say I'm not trying to put a halo on Annette, although I probably could. And she's not trying to do the same with me. But seek first to understand before being understood. And if you have that in your relationship, then you'll find that you have ways that you can better associate with what's going on with your partner or with your children or whoever it might be, trying to understand their perspective versus trying to put our perspective first.
Again, you have to know what you're starting with, what you're doing, where you're starting, just like you're starting with, you're changing your home first. Starting with that is making sure that your other people around you are feeling understood. And I know that you've brought a lot of hope today for people today listening. Just from this episode. So forget about everything else just from this, it was so worth it. But where else could people go and find you, connect with you, and really get more hope from you?
Well, we'd love people to start following us and connecting with us on social media. It's interesting. When Mark and I were first talking about, well, what can we call us? Because we really weren't on social media, and we love to hike. We love to do, spend that time together outdoors. And if you've seen rocks that are stacked up on top of each other, they're called a cairn, CAIRN. And cairns are an ancient trail marker. They show that someone's been there before, that you're on the right path. And so our handle on Instagram and Facebook and that is Karen the Load, because we're here to help others carry their load. And as we share content and others are engaging and joining in this community, it really is a place of hope. And so we'd love to have your listeners follow us there. They can follow us, KarenTheLoad.com. And we also have, it's called BrokenToBeautiful.net. And that's where you're going to be able to also find us and schedule a discovery call with us for free, that they can take some time to visit with us personally and see if there are some of the things that we could help them address and find some of this hope in putting the pieces back together in life. So we'll have, hopefully you can put those links in your show notes. And
of course, I'll be there.
Don't forget Trail Angels.
And Trail Angels. How could I forget that? Trail Angels is the name of our podcast.
Yes.
And Trail Angels, again, it's similar to a Karen, but a Trail Angel is someone that's there for you, someone that helps along the way, encourages you. You know, maybe have you ever been at a drive-through and you go up to pay and you get told they paid it for, it's already been paid for you? Right. That's a Trail Angel. You're a Trail Angel in what you're doing in your podcast and how you're helping others. And again, if individuals were to look and reflect upon their life, they're going to recognize that they have Trail Angels. You know, a mentor could be a different name, but a Trail Angel, just someone that's helped them along the way.
Beautiful. Amazing. Okay. So for our final question, how would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using love, connection, and for you guys, I'm going to put in hope?
Oh boy. Those are components of a great relationship, but maybe one of the words that you didn't mention there is the word trust.
I was like, okay, we're putting in trust or putting in connection. You got lucky.
Well, you know what? If that's the case, and you'd have included trust in that word as well, we need to come up with some different adjectives there as well, and different. When it comes right down to it, I believe that relationships are built on mutual respect, and mutual respect is so critical in the fact that one is not bigger than the other. As a relationship, as we mentioned before, each of us have our different styles. And it's a helper. I'm an achiever. But when it comes to being together, our focus is on that, as we talked about before, the common goal. It's the little rocks that are there that maybe we have different opinions on and such, but it's really the factor of trying to achieve the goals that big rock represents. And once you can do that, and once you can be a helpmate to that other person, and that person can be a helpmate back to you, then you know that you've got a great relationship.
What do you
exactly. And I was thinking respect as well, but I also think equality. We're equals in our worth, in our value, but yet we're diverse and we're unique. And that brings beauty to this relationship.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I love that so much.
We thought we loved each other 37, 38 years ago, but that's continued to grow based on what Annette just said.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Annette and Mark. This was so interesting with so much great value packed in. I really appreciate you coming on here, sharing your time, sharing your wisdom and your hope with Life Fixers.
Thank you so much for having us and inviting us to be a part of the show.
It's been a privilege.
That's all for this episode of Life Picks Relationships, and we have a huge favor to ask of you that will not only support this show, but also give others what they need to take their marriage to the next level. We're striving to have 1 million downloads per episode by December 31st, 2025, so please share it with your family and friends so they can turn their relationship into an extraordinary one.